Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and we are back with Smallville Rewind. And yes, I'm keeping the AC on because it's hot as fuck where I am right now, which is actually perfect for this episode. This episode is titled Heat. And as they are going through a heat wave on this show, we are going through our own heat wave. It was like 105 degrees the other day, so fuck that shit. Let's get started with this episode. At the beginning, we see that Lana is making videos for Whitney, because Whitney's away, right? He joined the military, and he's been gone for the summer months now. And Lana's trying to get his friends to make videos for him, to sort of talk to him, give him encouraging messages, and that's nice. Like, in theory, that's nice. And I know that these characters aren't going to be the focal point, or I guess we're just not going to see them. But wasn't Whitney more friends with, like, the football team? Why is she asking Clark Kent to make a video for her boyfriend? Now, I know that Clark and Whitney actually did end things on good terms. And ultimately, Clark did do a lot for Whitney as far as either helping him out with his father or being there for him, not going after Lana behind his back. And Lana doesn't know this, but Clark made a promise to look out for Lana while Whitney's gone. So maybe it does make a little bit more sense, but I love the fact that Clark didn't know what to say. Clark was like trying to talk, and he was just kind of stumbling and just sort of like, yeah, I don't know, Lana. This ain't really working out. And even Lana was like, okay, well, maybe we can do this again later on. They mentioned that they're going through a heat wave, which I just thought, once again, was ironic, given how hot I was while watching the episode. And then Chloe Sullivan returns. She's been away for the summer. She's been in Metropolis. She's been doing, I believe, an internship. And so it's great to have Chloe back. I mean, for me, she hasn't been gone all that long, but if you were watching at the time, the whole summer goes by and the show's back. It's nice to see how happy Clark was to see Chloe back. It shows how much he cares for her. But Chloe was super, ultra, mega standoffish. And I get it. She still has feelings for Clark. She had to come up with that BS of like, oh, we should just be friends, to see what Clark would say, and then Clark just agreed to it, and then that pissed her off. It's like, classic, let's not just tell you how I feel. Let's see how you feel, and then get upset over him feeling that way. And so she's being super shady, she's being super, like, throwing shit at Clark subtly. She even says at one point that, like, oh yeah, I met this hot other intern guy in Metropolis, and he made me forget all about Smallville for the summer. And she's like, alright, see ya, Clark. And she starts walking away, and Clark was just like, what the fuck? he's like looking around like, that was weird. And like, I can't tell if he's actually affected or jealous by what she said, because he just looks more confused. But they cut to Chloe, and she's actually looking back to see if Clark is jealous or is feeling some sort of way. Man, do I feel bad for Chloe. It's like, I don't want to say she's coming across as desperate or pathetic, because I get it, especially in high school. I too did stuff like that, where it's like, I was so immature and so dumb as a teenager that instead of telling a girl that I liked her, I would just play games and be like, oh, well, yeah, I like this other girl, to see if they got jealous. And then to see because if they got jealous, that would tell me that they're interested. As opposed to just fucking asking them. I don't know why we do that type of stuff as kids. I don't know why that seems to be the norm in high school, but I would be a liar if I acted like I didn't do the same goddamn shit. So, we get Nelly's Hot in Her song playing, which is not what I expected in the Smallville soundtrack this season around. And we get that because in their biology class, I think, brand new teacher, Desiree Atkins, who is played by Krista Allen. And oh man, I forgot how hot this actress was, because I believe I've seen her before. She might have been in Final Destination 4 and probably like 5 other things to where I'm like, oh yeah, she's usually like the hot chick in whatever she's in. But seeing her as the hot teacher was quite interesting. Especially Clark's reaction, his immediate reaction. He couldn't even visually hide how hot he thought this teacher was during the, granted, she's showing them like a sex education video. That's always awkward. And so Clark's already, I guess, feeling some sort of way, and they're teenagers, so hormones are kicking in. But he keeps glancing back at her because she's in the back of the class. And because of the heat wave, she's sweating. And the camera's super close up of her sweating and her looking hot and her like brushing the sweat off of her chest. And Clark's just staring. And even they show Chloe going, oh my god, really, Clark? Like, fucking hell, man, right? And then Clark, his hormones start kicking in. Heat starts coming from his eyes, and he burns the projector of the screen. And it's amazing the way how they did the effects of the heat vision. Like, it's not as obvious that the heat is coming from Clark's eyes. I guess that was a conscious choice, because usually it's like, well, anybody would have seen the heat coming out of Clark's eyes, and everybody would have known Clark's secret. Oops. So I guess that's why they did it this way. But the fact that the heat vision was inspired by Clark being horny for his teacher was so goddamn hilarious. Luckily, we don't see this, but we're told that Clark put out the fire. Lex Luthor shows up, and at first, I love that at first Clark thinks that Lex is there to check on him. He's like, because Lex is like, oh, I came as soon as I heard. I hope you're okay. And Clark looks like he was about to say, oh, well, thanks, Lex. Let me give me a hug. And then Lex just goes right past Clark and hugs and kisses the teacher, Desiree. You come to find out that Lex is engaged to Desiree. They've only met each other like 2 weeks, and they're already engaged. In fact, they're getting married that same night. And even Clark is like, what the fuck? Because Lex says, hey, Clark, I want you to be my best man. It's so wild to me that like Lex doesn't have actual friends other than Clark or these teenagers, but given his life, his upbringing with Lionel Luthor, I'm sure a lot of his so-called, peers would be asshole rich kids as well, and maybe Lex doesn't really like to associate with that, or he said before he just likes the way that Clark is well, I was going to say more honest with him, but we all know that's not necessarily true either. Clark has a scene where he tells his parents about the fire in the school and about how it was caused by him. I loved how Tom Welling played this, super awkward and super like, having to talk about this with your parents. I even loved their reaction to it as well. That actually brought us a cool scene later on when Jonathan is trying to get Clark to understand his powers and try to deal with his powers. But before we get there, we see that Desiree is using pheromones. She's basically poison ivy without the plant shit. Like she's poison ivy because she brings out like this purple pheromone thing out of her mouth, and she entices men to do whatever she wants. And so that's how you find out that she's influencing Lex to do whatever she wants. So Clark tries again. He tries to make a video for Whitney with Lana at the Talon, and it goes better, I guess. Clark brings up in the video that he will continue to do what Whitney asked him to do. Lana says, what's that? And he says, well, Whitney asked me to look out for you, or he made it seem like he was watching her, almost like to make sure she's just not fucking any other guy. Like that, for some reason, that's how it came out, and that's almost how Lana took it as well. And Clark was like, oh, no, not that he doesn't trust you, but yeah, And yeah, that's awkward. And the two of them are talking, and Lana, Kristen Krug's always been attractive, but for whatever reason, this particular scene, she looks extra attractive, and that's on purpose because Clark is like looking at her while they're talking. And then he starts to feel hot and bothered. Even she touches his forehead and he's burning up. So he gets horny over Lana. And then like she goes, she says she's going to like drive him home or something. He looks out to the Talon's coffee maker, accidentally sets that on fire with his heat vision. Starts setting fire to the walls. Luckily, Lana doesn't really see this or doesn't realize that Clark is the cause of this. But Clark does some fucking damage to the Talon. And then later on, we see Desiree show up to the loft, to the barn, because everybody fucking does so. And she full-blown tries to seduce Clark Kent. And I'm glad that Martha Kent later on gets angry about this, in the sense of, like, it's a teacher, it's an older woman hitting on a teenage kid. I'm glad that was said, because no other character talked about how fucked up this was. No other character talked about how, like, she's seducing a kid, in theory. Because everybody else was, like, not believing Clark that this hot woman would hit on him, especially Chloe, because she's being mean, and so she's like, why would she be attracted to you, Clark? Even Clark's like, damn, really? And then, of course, Clark tries to tell Lex about it, but Lex doesn't believe him because it's his wife. Now, I like that Clark was the first and only person that was able to reject her pheromones. I guess pheromones, or her pheromones, only work on human men. Does it work on women too? I guess we didn't get that far. But Clark, because he's an alien, he's not affected by it. And so he's trying to tell Lex about it, but Lex doesn't believe him. And Lex basically turns on Clark, says that, like, their friendship's bullshit if he's going to lie about his wife. And Clark and Chloe had found out that Desiree lied about her name. She changed her name. She has this past. Clark tried to tell Lex about that. I like that Lex rejected it, but we know that he's rejecting it because of the pheromones, because of the control that Desiree has on him. So he has an out. And even though he's influenced, I like that he still brought up the name change to her. I like that he was still questioning and still iffy about some of that stuff. Of course, she just gets him to sort of go along with it and forget about it, pheromone style. The scene where Jonathan gets Clark to use his powers, control his powers on the Scarecrow in the field, was really cool. And then later on, you see him using it on Popcorn. So it's always cool when you get an episode, as silly as this may be, this one. We get an episode dedicated to one specific power of Clark Kent, one specific power of Superman. Because normally, if you just watch anything Superman related, he already has all these powers. It can seem overwhelming when one guy has so many different powers. But when you have it sort of stretched out over the course of episodes, and you see each one introduced in different ways, and seeing how Clark deals with it, how he comes to terms with it, how he's able to understand them and control them, like, that's great. That's the best way to handle it, and I think that's why Smallville does a great job with that. And then you get a scene where Lex just shows up at the Talon and tells Lana that he's selling the place, he's selling the building, he's getting rid of it, and she's done. The Talon's over. And Lana is visibly upset, of course, for good reason. Lex has just sort of made up his mind. I like that there's a scene later on where Martha shows up there, and Lex is there. And man, Annette O'Toole, she only has like 2 or 3 scenes in this episode, but she kills it each and every single time. And the scene, especially where she's talking to Lex, and she sort of blows up at him of like, you don't believe Clark. And you're believing this girl that you don't even know, even though you're saying you know her. Like, her level of anger wasn't over the top, but it was just enough to be like, she means it. I like that she even throws in his face that, like, I've argued and disagreed with my husband over trying to trust you. I tried to tell him that there was more to you than just being a Luthor. And now you're proving him right. Like, it absolutely made Lex feel guilty, feel dumb, and I think it accomplished everything that they had to do. So there's a scene where Desiree sets fire to her own car, and at first I was like, what the fuck is she doing? like that was random and weird as fuck. Cut to the police showing up at the Kent's home and saying that, oh yeah, Desiree says that she saw Clark set her car on fire, and that's the 3rd fire that Clark has been around, so we need to arrest him. It's like, God damn, Desiree, you're a bitch. And I like the level that Clark was kind of scared and kind of like, this is wrong, this is a mistake, this isn't true. And Martha tries to calm him down. Jonathan tells him to just go with it because Jonathan knows if Clark blows up, if Clark speeds away in front of the cops, like that fucks everything up, right? So Jonathan says, just go with the police and we will handle this later. I like that. Also, Chloe and Lana go to Clark while he's in his cell. And I like that because of Clark getting arrested, Chloe now is a little more proactive in searching into Desiree. She found out about her history with like other men, and like she marries them and then they die, and then she takes all of their money and then she just moves on to the next to the next. So they pretty much know they're on to Desiree now. They know what she's doing. But the shade that Chloe throws at Clark when she's like, well, luckily Clark Kent's the only one who was able to turn down her pheromones. Interesting that Clark Kent is immune to the opposite sex. And Clark looks over at Lana, and Lana's like, I don't know what to say, dude. And Clark is so embarrassed. He's more embarrassed almost for like Lana to hear that because he doesn't want Lana to think that like he's not attracted to women. I don't know. It was so awkward. It was so weird. And Clark got super defensive, and Chloe was like, yeah? Got something to say, Clark, about that? And before that, though, so Jonathan goes to talk to Desiree, and because he wants to obviously figure out what the fuck's going on. And Desiree is in the pool. And at first I thought she was wearing a bikini, but then when she gets out of the pool, they show her back, and she's very clearly topless. And I'm like, God damn, girl, really? I mean, I get it's hot, and I know you're hot, but fuck, you know? Jonathan, being the respectful man that he is, I like that. He obviously saw, and then he immediately looked away and said he wants to talk, but he'd rather do it clothed. He throws, like, the robe at her. Very respectful, Jonathan Kent. He's happily married to Martha Kent. Love to see it. But, of course, Desiree uses her pheromones onto Jonathan. It works. And before she kisses him, she says that there's something I want you to do. And at first I thought, like, is she going to get Jonathan to kill Clark or try to kill Clark because Clark is onto her and trying to expose her? No, you see that Jonathan... Well, it's funny how all of this plays out because Lex is, like, questioning Desiree. He gets this new paper that basically says that in the event of Lex's death, Desiree inherits everything that he owns. And he questions her about it, and she says, well, what do you mean? I'll just inherit everything. In the event of your death, of course. And Lex just sort of pauses and goes, do you plan on killing me? As if she's going to say, well, yes, I do. But what she does is almost equally as dumb, because she says, well, no, Lex, I don't plan on killing you. She goes towards the door. Once again, no security, no bodyguards at Luthor Mansion, as the amount of times that Lex, his life has been threatened at the mansion, especially, he still doesn't have. Now, obviously, because of her pheromones, you could actually buy that maybe she sent them away, but this has been a continuous problem over and over again. She opens the door, and she says, I'm not going to kill you. He is. And Jonathan shows up with this, like, was it a shotgun? Was it a rifle? I don't know. But he starts shooting at Lex, and Lex is like, what the fuck? And Clark, since Clark was in the jail cell, he sets fire to the jail, and the sheriff comes in. He opens Clark's cell to get him out of there for safety, and Clark just speeds out of there as soon as the guy turns around. That's hilarious, because now, Clark, you're a wanted criminal, but he did this because he knew his father was in danger. He goes to the mansion, although how did he know that Jonathan was at the mansion? I don't know, who cares? So he sees in bullet time, slow motion, that the bullet is going towards Lex. And I love this, because I love that he uses the heat vision to melt the bullet. I thought that was great, because I thought he was just going to run in and do whatever. But no, he has a new ability, so he decides to use the ability. And the melting of the bullet looks super great. When Jonathan tries to shoot Lex again, I like that Clark grabs Jonathan, throws him up against the wall to knock him out. And then, this was wild. So, Lex goes after Desiree, and she hits him with a bottle of wine, and then she sets his back on fire. And I'm like, holy fuck, well, clearly Clark is going to put the fire out on Lex, right? But Lex is on fire for what felt like 5 minutes, and it wasn't that long. It was probably 30 seconds, but even that sounds long. Like, I swear, Lex was on fire, yelling for Clark, and Clark was checking on his father, of course, but like, and then he goes, or he heats Visions the handle of the door so that Desiree can't get away. But he did all of this, wasting time while Lex is burning. Maybe Clark kind of thought, you know what, Lex, you were being a dick. I know you were influenced, but because you were being a dick, I'm going to let you suffer for a little bit. I'm sure that's not the case, but man, I was sitting there going like, fucking save Lex. So Clark finally does go to Lex, puts the fire out. I was waiting for Lex to say, you know, like his skin severely burned, and like it should be, but I guess it's not. I guess he's fine. And you find out that Desiree was just arrested after that, and Lex gave a statement, and I don't know if they said that she uses pheromones or if they just said that she was plotting to kill him. Maybe that's enough. But I was thinking the whole time, what's to stop her from using her pheromones on the police or on the judge or anybody to just get out of there, to walk out of there? You know that's going to happen. I'm surprised she just didn't get killed. Just to kind of get rid of her because she's a little too powerful, right? Lex goes to Clark in the loft, and he's talking to Clark about just in general that he needs to be more careful when it comes to women or when it comes to his passion and whatnot. He brings up that he respects the fact that Clark hasn't gone after Lana while Whitney's gone, but he tells him to not wait too long, which is good advice. But I was waiting for Lex to apologize. Again, I know that he was influenced. It's not technically his fault. But Lex is aware. He remembers all the mean shit that he said to everybody. The mean shit he said to Clark, and Clark was right about Desiree. The mean stuff he said to Lana. The mean stuff, you know, it's like, we needed an apology tour, Lex. And we didn't get that. So Lana is making a video, seemingly a breakup video for Whitney. Clark shows up, almost interrupts it accidentally, and Lana's kind of telling Clark that like she plans on breaking up with Whitney. Like it's like she just needs to be honest about her feelings. The long distance relationship is tough, and she just kind of wants to move on. And she also, I like that Lana was smart enough. They wrote her smart enough to be like, huh, how did you get out of the jail? And Clark said, well, there was a fire, and, you know, they let me out, and I just got out of there. And Lana was like, so that's 3 fires that you were all around. Interesting, Clark, you know? Like, she is clearly thinking something's up, and Clark just says, And Lana says something interesting, which she's talking about Whitney, but she also, I think, is warning Clark. Almost to say, like, if we end up dating, because she says relationships based on secrets won't last. They're not meant to last. And Clark sort of has a reaction to that. He just decides to leave her to make her video. But I swear Lana was trying to tell Clark, like, hey, if we ever start dating, don't fucking lie to me like what I suspect that you're doing at the moment. So I thought this episode was fun. I thought this episode was interesting. I liked Krista Allen, like as an actress. I thought her character, she's hot, but I thought they used her very well. Some of these episodes like are so interesting that I wish they played out for longer, like 2 or 3 episodes, because they get wrapped up so quick. And I know her going after teenagers, like you could argue that this is very problematic. This is something that like probably shouldn't have been done, but it was done. So what can you do? Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Heat, the episode? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!